All right, greetings everyone. I'm Tommy, and I am ready to start my presentation pertaining to my synthesis paper. So, first, basically, I conducted my research for the synthesis paper pertaining to instructional approaches for multimodal literacy. So, before I dive into exactly what multimodal literacy is, I want to start by the role of teachers today. And the first thing I want to start off is by saying one of the key issues of today's classroom for many teachers is lack of engagement. And I know many of us are already teachers, and we all have been faced with this factor of students not being engaged in learning. All right. So when students are not engaged, we all know that they're not learning. They do not sustain a lifelong learning experience. A lot of times their minds are elsewhere. They may be in their phone, sleep, and as a teacher, that makes you feel bad. Um, Therefore, like I said, many teachers may have difficulties in engaging students to learning. Um, so, for my personal experiences, I often ponder and think about different ways to engage my students in learning. Um, and I will go ahead and say that students today do not effectively learn by lecturing. And I'm beginning to realize as I continue to do my research that lecturing is a method that is almost obsolete. I'm not saying that it's not necessary in most cases, I'm just saying that it's not the sole method for teaching today or presently. So as I conducted my research, I learned a lot about multimodal literacy. And this is a learning method, I guess, or I could say an instructional method that promotes um, and or it engages students into learning. All right, so I'm sorry about this. I do not know why it was doing that. So first, what I want to do is kind of break down the terms multimodality, multimodal literacy. And first, I want to start off by defining what multimodality is. And basically, it involves the interweaving of words, images, gestures, and movement and sound, including speech. And all these things can be combined in different ways and presented through a range of media. All right. So next, I want to explain exactly what multimodal literacy is. And basically, it is about understanding the different ways of knowledge representing and meaning making, such as advertisement, posters, web pages, and films. Um, I kind of define it as a new way of reading and writing. And the glorious thing about multimodal literacy is a lot of our students are already knowledgeable on the different factors and characteristics of multimodal literacy or multimodal period. Um, so next I want to discuss the purpose of multimodal literacy instructions. Um, I can honestly say that majority of our students all learn differently. And so the good thing or a benefit of multimodal literacy is it kind of accommodates every, I'm not going to say every, but a lot of different learners. Okay. Um, so another purpose for me for including multimodal literacy in the classroom is that it can be a source of creativity for both teachers and students, which is very interesting to know. Multimodal literacy instructions provide an engaging and effective learning experience for all students, and this is the most important thing to me because one of my issues that I see in the classroom is keeping students actively engaged at all times to promote learning. Next is, why is multimodal literacy beneficial? All right, these are important. All right, multimodal literacy often enhances lessons that improve the interaction between teachers and students. So again, it's kind of like less lecturing and more involvement, which is a characteristic that I love. Students are more engaged in learning because of the factors from multimodal literacy. Students are actively involved in each lesson, which is a great thing. Um, it kind of makes me think of Charlie Brown when you hit her teacher in the cartoon, and it's like you don't understand what she's saying, and all of the students in the classroom are so bored by just listening to this teacher. Um, so the good thing about multimodal literacy is it's a way to get students involved and allow them to speak and allow them to use body language and gestures and collaborate that with learning. It is a learning that takes place without relying solely on print-based literacy. So another factor about multimodal literacy is it doesn't depend on the textbook for learning, or it doesn't depend on a worksheet for learning. It's more project-based learning, which is another factor that I love. It is also learning that is hands-on, and we'll learn about different activities students use or could be incorporated into the classroom. Again, and I think I mentioned this earlier, it accommodates to all learners, I apologize for that, by allowing students to learn through different modalities. And again, that's by listening, visualizing certain things, using technology. It's just a wide range of attributes that relate back to learning, or ultimately it engages students into learning. All right, so next I want to discuss the multimodal activities specifically for an English language art classroom. One of the greatest, and before we go over these activities or discuss these activities, I want to say one of the greatest factors of multimodal literacy is you could use different methods for learning, which is great. Multimodal literacy is not centered around just technology. It also uses gestures, listening, sound, and music for learning. And what student wouldn't be engaged by using gestures for learning, or body language, or listening to music to promote learning? All right, so the following are just a couple of different activities that are multimodal for an English language art classroom. And most of these, I'm sure everyone has heard of. Mind mapping, which I learned is great for reading. Visual writing prompts, which is different but very creative. And then the use of social media as a learning tool. All right, so first, let's focus on mind mapping. The use of mind maps allows students to visually organize information. That's wonderful. That's great. I love it. The activity enforces students to sustain, I apologize for that, information, which is great, and which is our ultimate goal as a teacher. The tool can also help students use the thematic connections between two or more texts that they are reading, or discover the major themes of a single book, which is wonderful. I have a small video embedded into this presentation that kind of go over mind mapping, if I can get it to work, hopefully. Okay, here it is. And we're not going to watch the whole thing.
I got something here for you. Listen to me carefully, this is important. It could save your life. Suppose you're on the street, a couple cars pull up, you're in a jam, you reach in your pocket, you're going to need something special to help you out of one of those circumstances. You understand what I'm talking about? I got here for you a human brain. This thing is important. This has been a little used, but by somebody who only had a couple thoughts. There's still plenty this brain can do. I'm talking millions of neurons in here. I'm talking billions of connections. This is something that is beyond belief. So let's say you need a little internal control. It's in here. It's going to take care of it. You need to have some new ideas. Give you an opportunity. Space. So we'll write the word space. Space. So we'll write the word space. Now, when I make these maps, I always print with letters that I can read real easily. If you close your eyes right now, can you almost see those letters written on that paper? Can you see that picture of that UFO in the cloud? Good, because being able to see something inside of your mind is part of remembering it. Also, anything you can do that makes it stand out on the paper will make it stand out in your memory too. So we're going to talk about space. Let's do this. Let's talk about what we all know about space or what we would like to learn. We might put some question marks on here for things we don't know, but we want to know. So, what do we know about space? We know that there may be some UFOs out there that would be fun to see. What else do we know? Min, what do you know?
There's gravity in space.
Gravity. That's an interesting one. How should we draw gravity? What is it? Do you know what gravity is?
A person going up in the air.
Okay. All right, let's draw a person, and we're just going to make it kind of an easy person. Here's a person, and they're connected up here because there's no gravity. They're floating. Now, where do we have gravity? Down here on Earth.
There's a little bit of gravity.
A little bit of gravity in space? Good.
All right, that just gave you the gist of mind mapping. All right, next, which is one of my favorite activities, is visual writing prompts. This is so different. This activity allows students to kind of visualize what they're going to write about. So I have given you two writing prompts that are visual, and basically a teacher could specify, okay, on one of the prompts, write me a 5-paragraph essay on compare solving equation to boxing, or will this be humanity's future? Why or why not? So the teacher could just specify the different requirements they want for the essay, but again, this gives students a visual of what they're going to write about. All right, the last one example I want to give you is using the social media site Twitter as a learning tool in the classroom. And this is very neat, in my opinion. And it's a way to also relate back to students, because Twitter is something that students
At Minneapolis Roosevelt High School, chalkboards are out, and Twitter and instant messaging are in.
You got wikis, iMovie, PowerPoint, iPhoto.
Most of the times we're dealing with computers, searching on websites.
Thanks in part to the University of Minnesota's Department of Curriculum and Instruction, these students at Roosevelt are weaving the social websites they use on a daily basis with traditional courses like English.
My take on education is that if you don't engage the kids, you might as well be talking to the wall.
Roosevelt teacher Delania Haug says using social sites like Twitter has significantly increased student engagement. Haug says students use social sites like Facebook and Twitter to communicate outside of class, so it only makes sense to use those tools to get the kids communicating during class.
The point is to get them engaged and make it pertinent to them, but I'm still sneaking in there all the things that I know are good English language arts teaching and learning skills.
It's all part of the university's DIGME program. That's short for digital media. The DIGME program...
Okay, so I just want to give everyone an example of how you can use Twitter in the classroom. All right, in conclusion, my main purpose, again, for multimodal literacy is to engage students and give them a different way of learning where you can make learning fun and enjoyable, but they get an effective use out of learning.